Vanity project.
It's a chart topper.
Vanity.
Midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis!
Oh, you whore!
Not midlife crisis. Midlife clarity.
They're arrogant.
Nice if you like.
Midlife clarity.
Menopause.
Oh, menopause?
Your little vanity project.
I'm losing my edge.
It's a vanity project.
I stared into the abyss.
I'm losing my edge.
A cash grab vanity project.
That little vanity project.
It's tremendous. I love it.
It's just a vanity project.
Ross,
Raise.
you know we're doing an unauthorised, one-of-a-kind special today.
I have heard this. I've heard that this is a very special episode, like an episode of The Cosby Show.
I don't think you should reference Bill Cosby. I don't think it's legal anymore, is it?
To reference Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
One of my friends gave me one of his records, which is called Bill Cosby Talks to Your Kids About Drugs.
That's an unfortunate start to things. I loved Fat Albert, though. Welcome to the entirely unauthorised Diamond Jubilee of His Most Dissident Majesty, Professor Dr Gary Foley. He has other titles and stylings too. Regent of the Unceded, Keeper of the Rage, High Warden of Dissent, and Gary, I believe you're also the Sovereign of Sovereignty. Happy Diamond Jubilee.
Well, thank you.
What
can I say?
We missed your actual birthday, but a lot of other folk didn't. This is just one of the activities recorded on the actual day of Gary's birthday.
Which was Mother's Day.
I have trouble breathing, but while I still got breath, I want to urge all Australians to kick the asses of your piss-weak politicians. We should be demanding that the politicians of Australia start taking into account what is left, if they have any, of their own humanity. Any person who is a human being should be out here with us demanding that what's going on in Gaza and what's going on to our Palestinian brothers and sisters should and must stop.
So you were, as you are every week, at Free Palestine outside the State Library.
Yep.
You are an incredible public speaker.
So they tell me, but I don't think so, but go on.
Oh, you do so.
Yeah, you know.
You
seriously.
know you're the shit.
Seriously, that's like telling me I'm not handsome. You know that you're a great public speaker.
Yeah, seriously.
So how did you get there? It's not natural to me.
When I was 17, I just moved to Sydney from the bush, and I used to, on Sundays, to entertain myself, go down to the Sydney Domain to Speaker's Corner, where I used to go and watch a bloke called John Webster speak every Sunday. He was, in my mind, and to this day, I still reckon he's one of the greatest orators I ever heard. And he used to have the biggest crowd at the Domain. He used to flog a little one-page paper, talking a lot of shit on it, but sell it to the crowd for 20 cents a paper. And he made enough money each summer in Sydney to then go to London and do the same thing in Hyde Park, at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, and make enough money to come back. So he followed the sun around the world each year. But he was a brilliant orator, and he blew my mind because the challenge for the audience was to try and disrupt his line of thought or throw a question at him on any subject under the sun, and he could not only talk authoritatively or sound as though he was talking authoritatively on it for up to 10 minutes, but also make you laugh your head off in the process. And so
But this,
I used to
this bloke, what was his name again? Sorry?
John Webster. Webster
Yeah.
is famous.
Yeah, like he was...
There's docos about him.
He was informed by our Dark Lord, was he not?
Say again?
He had the Dark Lord, Lucifer, on his
Well,
side.
he was among other things, what's the male equivalent of a witch? He was a warlock.
A warlock.
Yeah, and he used to have a little cone in the cross. But he used to also, on Sundays, after speaking at the Domain, he would adjourn to the Wayside Chapel, where they had this fantastic theatre out the back of the Wayside Chapel, and he'd get up there and do a rave, and everybody who thought that they could make a name for themselves heckling Webster would go to this thing at the chapel every Sunday night where Webster would talk at length, and the crowd that he attracted ranged from street people in the cross to junkies and bikies and a small bunch of blackfellas. Me and Paul Coe and Billy Craigie used to go and watch him just to hear him talk. And one day he approached us and he said to us, "Listen, you guys," he said, "I know yous are out there trying to get your message across. If you're interested, I'd be happy to give you a few tips on how to do it better." And naturally, Paul Coe, being the arrogant arsehole he was, said, "No, get fucked."
The number of times I've tried to make the Trots podcast listenable, and they're like,
"Let me finish this story.
Sorry, darling."
Don't interrupt. And so Paul Coe said, "Get fucked, I'm not interested." Billy Craigie was a bit more shy, but I said, "Yeah, I'll take you up on that." So Webster gave me a few tips, and he gave us the opportunity then he said to us one Sunday, "Get up in front of my audience and see how you go," because his audience was the most challenging audience under the sun. If you get up and survive for 5 minutes talking in front of an audience like that where they're trying to tear you down, then that's how you learnt to handle yourself as a public speaker. And that's where I learnt the tricks of the trade of public speaking and how to handle hecklers and how to sort of, handle assholes who wanted to pick a fight with you or whatever. And I've got to thank old Ted Knopfs for that. Ted Knopfs was the mad preacher at Wayside Chapel. The Wayside Chapel they had a Christian church out the front, but they had a coffee shop upstairs and a theatre out the back on 2 levels, and it was just a fantastic place, and that's where I learned how to speak.
So in that little bit of conversation we just had, which I appreciate you sharing, Helen tried to interrupt you, and you just went, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah, he's like.
So hang on a second.
He's the one guy that can
see,
do
I
that.
can't do it. Can you please teach me how to do that?
No, Helen and I have deep, profound respect for each other. That's why we can do that to
Right.
each
So
other.
and Helen and I don't. So that's why I can't.
No, we both have like colossal self-esteem, and we are both convinced at all times that we're going to make the extraordinary point that will make all oppression crystalline and will really fucking nail it and be funny at the same time.
Indeed.
But he's older than me, and I kind of respect him because he's not a dick and he's not uncool. And he's one of the few people, there's been some very boring, fugitive, pro-Aboriginal rights speakers. Marcia loses the plot sometimes.
The sad thing about Marcia Langton is she and I were really close friends for a long time, up until about mid-1980s. And in fact, the job she's got at the University of Melbourne today is thanks to me. I was the one who suggested that she be approached for the role. And when she first started at Melbourne Uni, her and I set up a couple of new subjects which I taught, and we had a really good relationship. But she's a bit like Donald Trump in the sense that anyone who gets close to her inevitably, as Elon Musk is finding out right now, gets cast aside.
Yeah, Gary's sounding all sad about, Marcia Langton. She was along with Pearson, sort of one of the faces of the Walking Together reconciliation movement, which was full of nice people. And I have to admit, I went on those marches, Gary. I'm sure you disapprove. The whole thing was that if only we understand each other, things will be better. No, fuck that. I don't need to understand someone. You know what I mean?
I still, despite the major falling out we've had, I still have profound respect for her intellect.
Yeah.
She's a very, very smart person.
And also she's hot. And also your friend Germaine Greer is also like a hot old lady. And let's be honest, you love watching those. I've been in the room where you're like, Germaine and Marcia in the same room. We were waiting for that cat fight.
Well, I've documented that particular brawl. It's all on my website.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting brawl because you had two formidable intellects really having a go at each other. The argument with Marcia started when Marcia wrote the glowing review of Baz Luhrmann's fucking Australia, or whatever it was called. And
Well, she liked it.
Germaine came back and ripped the shit out of Marcia's review of it. And then it was on, and then the fight started, and then it sort of escalated. It started off in the pages of the Australian somewhere in the Quarterly, and then Germaine upped the ante by attacking from some publication in London. It's all on my website, folks. Go and check it out. It's a great fight.
Like, arguably,
Hey, hang on a second. What is the URL for Gary's website?
Courierweb.org.
I just want to return to the idea of you and public speaking. Like, you're good at it, but in the particular...
I don't think of it that way anymore. It just comes natural.
Yeah.
I just shut my eyes and open my mouth and out it comes.
But you made the effort to learn to do that. And that is rarer now than it has been before. Not only has all oratory like just turned into this kind of like bland, like, I'm going to share a personal story with you now and I'm going to be vulnerable. Like a lot of political stories like that, right?
And that is my personal thing. So when I get up and in fact, I'm doing it right now. It's like, here is my problem. I can't speak in public very well. Not as well as Gary can.
Yeah.
That
is actually a Harvard Business School speech technique.
Mm-hmm.
You appear vulnerable and you share a story and you get to oppress your workers better because you're being a pretend powerless person.
Here are the things from my life that make me vulnerable and make me accessible to you. For example, that when I was a kid, and I've told you this before, the reason that I'm breathy on the microphone is because my nose is broken. My nose is broken because everyone thought I was a gay kid, right? I had the shit kicked out of me all the time. And now I'm able to tell you a story about how great if something else is, right? So I've made myself accessible through an understandable story, a little bit of personal pain, and here we go.
Yeah. In my conversations over the years with Gary, who does have knowledge about actually getting shit done and not getting it done necessarily within the institution, fuck incremental change. What it's about is connecting with actual people and having an actual conversation and being respectful enough not to think that people are stupid, because they're not. People are not that stupid. And people talk, even at political rallies now, they talk to us like we're fucking stupid. It seems there's every effort not to engage. And I found it really weird that this is even and sometimes especially the case in radical politics now.
Well, I mean, that too many people who speak at rallies and things are people who are there just wanting to make a name for themselves. They don't know what they want to get across. They got no idea of how to speak in public. It bugs me every invasion day at the rallies, if I can use an example that relates to my mob. I mean, every invasion day at the rally at the start at Parliament House, you'll hear half a dozen or so what I call fuckwits get up and grab the mic and just rattle on and talk a load of shit, which is completely irrelevant or completely meaningless and completely useless. And I keep saying to the people who organise those rallies, when you have a rally, if you're going to have somebody talk, make sure there's somebody who know what they're talking about and restrict them to 3 minutes max. And when they get to 3 minutes, get a hook and pull the bastards away from the mic or switch the mic off.
Because you know the tricks, Ross, you know your way around business. I refuse to believe that you don't know management theory because you know.
I know very well. So
you know about speaking.
So I understand the idea of the syllogism. I understand the idea of, the if but therefore and here but when. But I've looked at the speeches that Gary has done over a large amount of time, which have been, from what I can tell, extemporaneous. And they are good. They are off the cuff. And I can't do off the cuff like that. I have to, if I'm going to do any kind of public speaking at all, I have to rehearse the shit out of it.
I guess, though, there was 1988, the Australian bicentennial, the commemoration and celebration of legal and physical genocide, right? Not a good way to start a fucking colony, I'd say, you know. I mean, bit of a controversial thing. And it was an amazing fucking day. And I'm so glad that I got up. I don't like rising early. And we went down to Eddy Avenue. I think that's where it began. And
well, that's where the Whitefellas began. We began in Redfern Park, and you linked up with us at Eddy Avenue.
It was fucking amazing, and it's just like I don't even know how it happened. Then it was just like, because there wasn't much audio or any technology, but we're all just like we're gonna march, and you're just gonna stand by and applaud, and it wasn't sentimentalist garbage. It was one of the strongest feelings of solidarity I've ever had in my life. And it's also, according to one of Australia's 3 professors of Aboriginal history, i.e. him, almost indisputably the largest gathering ever of Aboriginal people.
Well, it was. In 80,000 years, the biggest gathering ever in history. There was more than 1 million people in Sydney that day.
It was extraordinary. No one was expecting it.
And the reason I gave a really good speech that day is simply because in a situation like that, where you stand up in front of a crowd like that and you look out there and you feel the vibe, that's what, inspires you to, say something profound or something reasonably bloody intelligent rather than, a load of shit. And it was the crowd who were inspirational for me that day,
There is an element, isn't there, though, of this feels like a day that may be remembered at some point as historic. Better do my best.
I was as surprised as you were about the size of the crowd and
it was
just the whole
incredible
feeling on the day. I knew it was going to be a big event, but by the time we reached Eddy Avenue and linked up with all of the rest of you who were going to march with us, it was just mind-boggling, and it was really inspirational. And people from all over, Aboriginal people from all over Australia were there, and which is one of the things that made it the biggest gathering of Aboriginal people in history, and that in itself, we all sort of were feeding off the feeling, that was there in the air. It was just such a great day.
Political action became very disappointing after that day because it was like 18 or something, and it was like, it's always going to be like this. But it was extraordinary. It was undisputed sincerity. And Ross, you're going to remember the bicentennial year and hockey.
I actually recently found my medal. They gave all students a medal that year.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Do you want to see it? I'll grab it later.
I know what they look like.
Yeah. I've still got mine.
Let me say the story about one of the important stories about that medal. All Australian school kids got that medal.
That little silver thing in the cardboard box.
At Vaucluse High School, Bob Bellear's 2 sons were going to Vaucluse High School, and they not only refused to accept the medal, they went and saw the headmaster. They asked the headmaster at Vaucluse High School if they would be allowed to address the entire school assembly to explain to the assembly why they were going to reject accepting these medals. The headmaster allowed them to do it. Half the school gave their medals back in support of these 2 young blokes. The oldest boy, Carly, the younger one, Malu, died young, sadly, but Carly today is a pilot for Virgin Airways.
Bobby Bellear was the first or second Aboriginal barrister.
Not only that, he was the first Aboriginal District Court judge in Australia.
And also he got my Uncle Greg, with whom he was in the Mullumbimby 12 rugby union team, I think. He was friends with him, and he kind of got the scraps because the girls were very interested. I understand that Bob was quite an attractive man.
I'd say so.
No. So my Uncle Greg's first kiss was one of Bob's cast-offs.
Well, let me tell you a story about Bobby Bellear and those 2 sons of his. I was in the Empress Hotel in Sydney, in Redfern, one of the roughest pubs in Sydney at the time, when Bob and Kay, his wife, on 2 different occasions found these little Aboriginal babies crawling around on the floor of this fucking rough, horrible pub, and picked them up and took them in and eventually adopted both of them. So both these kids were adopted by Kay and Bob, which is another extraordinary part of their story, and Bob Bellear only became a barrister by, first of all, he was in the Navy for a few years, and then he left the Navy and got involved with us in Redfern at the Black Power movement. And he then, in order to go to uni, he had to go back to high school at night, do night high school, and complete his high school education before he then did his law studies part-time. And I'll tell this story now because it really made me angry at the time. We had created, Paul Cohen, Gary Williams, myself, had created the first Aboriginal legal service in Australia, and Bob was studying with the intent that he become a lawyer for the Aboriginal legal service when he graduated. And Paul Coe started studying law a little bit after Bob, and then when Bob completed his studies, because he'd completed his studies before Paul did, Paul, being the head of the legal service, refused to offer him a job, and that's why Bob would never work for the Aboriginal legal service. The same thing was done to Pat O'Shane, who was the first Aboriginal lawyer in Australia.
You, like me, Ross, love a little bit of culture jamming.
I do. I love it very much.
Do you remember Bugger Up?
I do.
They were the billboard utilising graffiti artists against unhealthy propaganda. Bugger Up. And they did really funny shit. They defaced billboards. And one day Pat O'Shane, she just makes magistrates don't usually do anything interesting. She made a passionate judgment. I believe it was for it was like a very sexist ad, I think. Bugger Up were famous for defacing cigarette billboards, but she said, basically, like, the true crime is this advertisement, and these people are heroic for defacing it, because that kind of thing once happened.
Pat O'Shane, in my mind, is another one of those Aboriginal women who I've got profound respect for, She had a major struggle herself, putting herself through law school as a single mother with a couple of daughters. And it was a really tough struggle for her, and she was subjected to a lot of fucking sexist shit from Aboriginal men at the time in the Aboriginal legal service. But she went on to become, as you know, a first Aboriginal magistrate, and later on the head of the State Department of Aboriginal Affairs. And, she came from a really strong political family in North Queensland,
Yeah, she was a bright person with it seemed to me from...
She was a very tough and strong woman.
Like a real kind of like political framework that she didn't veer from.
Look at them two beautiful magpies out there.
Pretty fucking amazing.
Oh, hang on. Would you like to know...
Look at those two beautiful birds out there.
So there's two there, and they've got... You know how they normally have a fledgling that has to leave every year?
Yeah.
After a year they leave?
Just one.
The fledgling hasn't left.
All right.
The fledgling is still around. And we've named him Bird Ferguson. So Bird Ferguson will turn up in a little bit. He's maybe a little bit of a stunty.
They're such beautiful birds.
Oh, mate, they are the...
Sorry, folks, they're
no Australian raven.
We're doing a bit of ornithology.
They're no Australian raven.
I reckon they're better. So these guys we can recognise. So there's three of them in the family. When we go for a walk, they follow us around because we've been feeding them for years now, for about 7 years. And we're like, oh my God, all these birds, all these magpies look like the ones just out the front of our house. And it's not, of course. It's just the three just follow us around, just checking us out. And we also we never get swooped because we've always got them following us around when we go wherever we go.
Do they knock on the door yet?
So they come up here, they come up now onto the upstairs balcony and have a bit of a squawk. And now, every now and then they'll tap on the window if we haven't fed them enough.
Well, I got to say, I had my COVID-19, oh, that's hilarious, Helen, experience during lockdown where I made friends with the local area manager who was Corvid Coronodes, the beautiful, beautiful Australian raven. I'm going to go with the best bird in the world, and a very useful bird too.
It's no tawny frogmouth, but okay.
No, mate. You've never had anything to do with they eat the carrion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, carrion that nobody else wants. They'll eat it. They can count to 6.
It's better than I can do most days.
They can think about the future. They also mourn for each other, and they're real assholes. But like funny assholes, and they're black as their same black is like Elvis's hair.
Are you projecting a little bit?
No. If like this, Gary, you know the Australian raven is a fairly special kind of creature.
It's a very, very smart bird.
Absolutely.
And Robert Smith, I miss him dreadfully, but they're
The Australian raven was one of the first ones that worked out how to tip over the cane toad, right?
Really?
Yeah. So one of the
he's a Ross is a cane toad buff.
One of the things that has stopped the spread of the cane toad has been birds teaching each other how to flip them over and eat them out of the guts where they're not poisonous, right?
Yeah, they're clever.
So their back is poisonous, their belly has no poison, and they were spreading incredibly wide, right? And the Australian raven was one that worked out how to just flip them over and just attack them through the guts. And that stopped them going.
While we're talking about cane toads,
I
just want to chuck in a plug for my YouTube channel, the Aboriginal History Archive YouTube channel. I've got a little film on there about cane toads.
Have you?
Funny.
Is it the mockumentary about cane toads, the famous one? Yeah, that's really good.
That's incredible.
I believe Ross's interest in cane toads came, if memory serves, which it so very often doesn't. You and your mate had a really cool idea for a book that I think actually eventuated. You were just going to nominate 10 of the biggest deals from history who just fucked up badly. Am I right? Was that the basic
That's
premise?
one of the things we've talked about, but yeah.
You never did it?
No, I've never written a book in my life.
But you did.
So you guys talk to me like I'm an equal, and I'm not. I'm just the confident person.
Oh, I produce nothing. And I'm cranky.
This wouldn't be happening without you.
Well, do you know
Thank
what?
you, Gary.
He already likes you more than me. I mean, what have I done this week? Lost my shit at Chemist Warehouse.
That's right.
Also threatened to defecate on a millennial for using the term I feel like rather than I think. I mean, I'm off my fucking head. So, history. And that book you were doing.
I never did a book. A thing that I have liked, I've always liked great historic mistakes, right? So we're bringing in a whole bunch of things to Australia that were never meant to be here. So obviously rabbits.
Cane toads.
Canies.
Colonists.
Yep. Cactoblastus. There's a whole range of things. I think the thing that Tony Armstrong did recently, eating the invaders. Do you know who Tony Armstrong is?
No.
It's not Princess Margaret's ex, isn't it?
No. He's a black fella. He played a very small number of games of AFL.
From which state?
South Australia, I want to say. But I couldn't guarantee it. For the past X number of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, he's been he was a breakfast presenter on the ABC.
Oh, yeah.
And now he's been one of those guys who's been given kind of license to do stuff.
Oh, is it the very handsome chap?
He is so beautiful. He has a great mustache.
Oh, he's hot as balls.
So you do know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's
paid no attention.
He's that handsome black guy.
Yeah,
he's
what about him now?
Hot as balls.
So
you know the guy. He's super handsome.
So he did a series only in the past maybe 6 or 12 months called Eating the Invaders, which was all about eating introduced species to Australia. Yeah. How do you cook carp? How do you cook rabbit? Which is pretty easy because when I was a kid we ate it all the time. But I thought it was a fantastic show.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like total shit, which is unusual for the ABC when they broach anything to do with black persons. But Gary, I think, was the first Aboriginal person to have his show cancelled by the ABC. An original, you were cancelled in, what was it, 1970?
73.
73, because it's all about Gary's 75th
It wasn't
birthday.
Jubilee.
It was the National Black Theatre.
Which,
It was the
of which
National
you-
Black Theatre show, basically black. The ABC wanted to do a series based on the stage show that we did in the Nimrod Theatre in 1972.
Clearly no one at the ABC had seen that show.
Well, they'd seen the show, but they commissioned us to do a pilot for a series, and when we came up with the pilot, they were so horrified that they didn't go near Aboriginal comedy again for another 40 years. That's 40 years before black comedy appeared on ABC TV.
I believe that there was a superhero character in one of your
It was
skits.
called Superbung, and people get frightened these days when I say the term Superbung. Even young Aboriginal people, you know. But I mean, ABC took one look at this pilot, cancelled the series they were going to do, and they didn't go near Aboriginal comedy again for 40 years.
I mean,
Until
that's,
that show Black Comedy.
like, that's so weird, because I think that would have actually done okay in 71. Like, this is the time of Alvin Purple and stuff
It's
like
still
people would find
it did go well because it's still every year. 52 years later, it's still shown every year on the ABC during National Aborigines Week.
Really?
Yes, there's no other Australian television show that I know of from back then that is still being replayed 52 years later on ABC.
Well,
Maybe like the
you
first
know, we
episode of Arnie Jack, maybe.
We did have
oh,
an
Annie
impact.
Jack was fucking great.
The poster for Basically Black was done by Brett Whiteley. I asked Brett Whiteley to do the poster for the show. He did this fantastic poster, the original of which today is worth at least $500,000. And Ken Horler, the director of the show, stole the poster. And 25 years later, I bumped into Horler in Sydney. I said, where's the poster? And Horler looked at me and said, it's on my lounge room wall. I said, he didn't do that for you, he did that for us. I said, you got to give it back, you bastard. And he looked at me and he said, try and take it off me. And he said that knowing that at the time he's one of Sydney's top legal eagles, and there was no chance a shit-kicking blackfellow like me was going to have a chance of taking him on something like that. And to this day, Rachel Maza, Bob Maza's daughter, and I have both asked, since Ken Horler died, Sacha Horler, his daughter, famous actress, she's been told
she was
that
in
that belongs
Praise,
to us,
remember?
and we've asked her to return it to us, and she still hasn't.
Oh, Sasha.
Give it back.
I'm going to get her number. Yeah.
Ring her up and tell her to give it back.
Yeah, I will. I'll shame her. I'm good at that.
So, Helen,
And get results.
Helen, fit and trim, how you been this week?
Oh, fit and trim. Take it away, Bitsy. Mate, I'm not good. I didn't go to the clinic, but that's okay. Now, how are you?
Me, preposterously well, actually. I'm doing pretty well.
This is a segment we have, Fit and Trim, where we, perhaps you don't know what this podcast is about,
Well,
Gary.
meant to be about originally at the start.
Perhaps you can't. We are two midlife people united in many ways.
Mostly about being hot,
hot,
attractive.
We're hot. We're cool.
That's what you can still do at your age, you fellas. I can't get away with that anymore.
Really?
Too
When did
old.
that stop?
No, it's just long gone.
Tell the museum story. Come on, tell the museum story.
Oh, it's a museum.
The museum story and solidarity with Greek people, Elgin marbles, bark paintings.
I didn't have a job for 20 years after I left the Aboriginal Arts Board. I didn't have a job for 10 years before I got the job at the Aboriginal Arts Board. I
How
only was
long
there.
did that job
But
go
you had
for?
the Royal Commission
I was only
job.
there for 3 years. Because
Hang on a second. So
Well, I mean,
out of 30 years, you had a job for 3 years.
now, Chicka Dixon and I took over the Aboriginal Arts Board when Hawke became Prime Minister.
Yep.
I mean, 10 years earlier,
What's that?
Chicka Dixon,
82, 83?
Gough
83.
Whitlam. Hang on, let me tell the story properly. Gough
Oh,
Whitlam.
he's in a shit
It
today.
starts with Gough Whitlam. Gough Whitlam set up the Australia Council, along with, Nugget Coombs, got Gough Whitlam to set up the Australian Council for the Arts. One of the boards in the original Arts Council was the Aboriginal Arts Board. And for the first 10 years of its operation after Whitlam set it up, it was run and controlled by white people. Bob Edwards was the director. And Chicka Dixon was the only Aboriginal employee in 74. And Chicka used to complain to me. He said, I'm working for all these fucking white fellas in what's supposed to be the Aboriginal Arts Board. And I used to say to Chicka, don't worry, Fox. That was his nickname. They didn't call him the Fox for nothing. And Chicka was one of my mentors. And I used to say to him, don't worry, Fox, one day you'll be the boss. And when you're the boss, when you're the chair, I'll come in as your director and watch your back. And so 10 years later, I'd forgotten all about that. Bob Hawke becomes Prime Minister. One day I get a phone call from Chicka. Chicka says, Foles. I said, what? What's the matter, Fox? He said, Bob Hawke's just made me chairman of the Arts Board. I said, oh, great. He said, remember what you promised me 10 years ago? I said, what was that? And he reminded me, and so I had no choice. But we both went in determined to politically transform the Arts Board. And for the first thing we did, we said, we're going in for 1 3-year term. We both agreed that if we stayed there longer, we'd be corrupted by the money and the power. And so we said publicly to anyone who'd listen, and we spread it all over Australia, we're only going there for 3 years and then we're out. We went in, hit the place, made all these dramatic changes. I sacked all the non-Aboriginal people in the board for a start. I showed how you could Aboriginalise an Aboriginal government agency without spilling blood or getting, people whinging about it or anything. We transformed the place, changed the policy, no more non-Aboriginal people being funded, because the first thing we found out was that most the funding up until we took over was being provided to non-Aboriginal people. So we did all that. And when I left the Arts Board, I was asked out of my trousers for another 20 years. And then I got offered a job at the Melbourne Museum.
What year was that?
This was 1998 or something. And
you had the Royal Commission job.
Don't distract me. I'm trying to remember now. And so I got offered this new job at the Arts Board. I was the senior curator for Southeastern Australia at the Melbourne Museum. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. We began some really interesting revolutionary stuff there as well. Me and Tony Birch created an exhibition where he said, well, let's change. Who has this museum been putting in the glass case in the past? Aboriginal people. Fuck putting Aboriginal people in a glass case. Let's put the anthropologists in the glass case. So we created a Baldwin Spencer in the glass case, which, upset lots of people, which is the intention.
That's totally
And we did all this great stuff. And so one day, we're going great guns, my best job I've ever had. One day I found out one of the curators in the other part of the museum came back from a visit to the British Museum in England, and they told me that they'd found in a cupboard in the British Museum, where they'd sat for more than 100 years, the only 3 surviving examples of Victorian Aboriginal bark art. The only 3 surviving examples on the planet. And so I went to our boss at the museum and I said, hey, listen, we've got our 150th anniversary coming up next year. How about we get the British Museum to lend us these 3 barks for exhibition during our 150th anniversary? I said that to the boss knowing that under the National Cultural Heritage legislation, Victoria was the only place in Australia where Aboriginal people had the power to seize objects, And so I got in touch with Gary Murray, where these barks had come from originally, 100 years ago. And I said to him, hey, listen, if I can get these barks out here, you need to grab them and we'll be able to reclaim them, And he said, sweet. So the boss of the museum spoke to the British Museum and I thought, oh, great idea, because the British Museum very sensitive about lending anything to anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was surprised that they agreed. And so these 3 barks arrive in Melbourne. The instant they arrived here, I said to Gary May, they're here, mate, do your thing. So he immediately bunged on what they called an emergency declaration, whereby he effectively seized the objects. And so I thought, we're sweet. This is fantastic. Only the British Museum predictably hit the roof. Only they weren't game to directly have a go at the Aboriginal people themselves. They put it on Harold Mitchell, the fucking fat man who was the chairman of the museum at the time, board of the museum.
Like British?
They put it on Harold Mitchell. You've got to take legal action against the Aboriginal people to have these things released. Otherwise, we're never going to lend you anything ever again. And so Harold Mitchell, on behalf of the British Museum, took Gary Murray to court. The court case began. We were doing all right for a little while. At some point along the way, I thought we were losing public support, so I got in touch with Gary Murray. Well, for a start, the instant Harold Mitchell got our museum to take legal action against Gary Murray and the Jar Jar Rung people, I walked up to my boss's office and I resigned on the spot. Cut my own throat, you know. Best job I ever had. But there was no way I was going to fucking stay with our museum if that's what they were going to do to Gary Murray and his crew. And so halfway through the battle, I realised we were losing a bit of public support. So I said to Gary Murray one day, I said, Gazza, we need more support, mate. We need to get the message out a bit broader. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, what is Melbourne, mate? He said, what do you mean? I said, Melbourne is the biggest Greek city in the world outside of Greece. I said, who hates the British Museum more than us?
Have
the
they?
Greeks. Let's go and talk to the Greeks.
Have they still got the Elgin marbles?
So we went, me and Gary Murray went and saw the editors at Neos Cosmos, got front page fucking news, got total support from the Greek community in Melbourne, but it still wasn't enough. The British Museum won their court case and the three barks went back to fucking Britain, which really pissed me off, but by then I was studying my PhD at Melbourne Uni and teaching at Melbourne Uni.
It's interesting you mentioned the idea of putting anthropologists under glass because, I mean, the British Museum itself becomes a display of the past. Like, it's a place where they cannot give up the just because acquisitive nature of empire. Like, these things are not on fucking display.
They're prizes.
Yeah, absolutely. That is Gary's phone.
Hold, please, caller.
You are listening to Vanity Project. No, look, my health's been fine. I just I've got this nose cancer. It's going to cost a lot of money. I'm going to have to get my nose chopped off and hopefully put back on. But yeah, no, I'm okay. I've learned from my friend Ross Float that routine is really super important.
It is tremendously important.
My God, why didn't anyone tell me?
Well, because I think that you don't learn that you need. Also, you get given routine when you're very young if you come from a relatively stable family.
Yeah.
So you go to sleep, you get up, you have breakfast, you put your clothes on, you go to school, you do all those things which are routine-like, and then they just kind of tip you into the world. And then you have to develop your own routine. And if you're a person like yourself or myself, then maybe that routine drops off because there's nobody around to tell you what to do. And in my life, I was self-employed for best part of 25 years. So I did whatever I wanted, whenever I fucking wanted.
Yeah.
So that didn't always lead to good outcomes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had a lot of tantrums at my clients. And, I mean, I think that's the thing, and I take inspiration from Gary Foley, who has done it with a lot more elegance than I have. But you make yourself completely unemployable so you can never sell out.
That's right. I agree. I've most of the last 50 years of my life, I haven't had a job, simple as that. It's only in the last 10 years, 15 years or so, since I've become an academic, I'm actually earning a professor's wage.
Yeah, and
which makes me part of the black middle class now, which the people I really have always hated, the black bourgeoisie. I shit can them, but I got to say that I must be part of it,
No, that's not. You've forgotten your basic class analysis. That's not how it works. It's like, I'm happy for you, comrade, if you are not currently as exploited in your labour as you have been in the past.
I still don't own anything, so, that's something.
Okay, I mean, big fucking deal.
I don't own a car. Only thing I own is my electric bike, and somebody gave me that. I didn't buy it. I don't own a house.
Everyone in the fucking world should have healthcare, enough to eat, just the basic, the crude stuff of life. And you've got that now, and don't be fucking thankful for it. Don't say that you're part of the black bourgeoisie.
Let me say this.
You are too ill-mannered to be the ruling class.
Let me say this. You've just said something outrageous in the sense that I get world-class medical treatment because as an alleged Aboriginal elder, by which they define any Aboriginal male over the age of 54, I am subject to this bullshit thing called close the gap. That's why I get all this fantastic first-class medical treatment that, my friends John O'Hawks and Shane Maloney and others have to pay for. I get it for free, and yet they don't earn any money. I do. I can afford to fucking pay for this, but I get it for free because I'm allegedly an Aboriginal elder. I think it's bullshit. I think that close the gap should be means tested, and arseholes like me who earn the amount of money I do should pay. But,
No, fucking healthcare should be fucking free.
Should be free for everybody.
Fucking everybody. That's right. Solidarity.
But if you got a dodgy system like you got now, then certain aspects need to be means tested, in my opinion.
Look, frankly, no, I believe in seizing the state, having a brief period of command capitalism, and then we go anarchist. You're here on Vanity Project. We do like to talk about health, but you're really okay. You've been flying back and forth. You haven't got plane disease?
No, I'm hunky-dory. I been losing some weight, haven't been doing enough exercise, but generally I'm pretty good.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it. It's exactly what you should be doing, and everything that they say at Harvard Business School.
So, Gary, Helen hates the fact that I do work for a living.
And I don't. I love it. I love that there can be somebody like you who earns loads of money and is still human, who still has a final human shred and has weird friends like me. I don't know what the fuck you tolerate me.
You're in a room with two people like that.
Thank you, mate.
Okay, so but anyway, this is about it's my birthday in July. It's your birthday in October.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, well, we've missed the month, we've missed the date. Gary Foley's Diamond Jubilee, the Sovereign of Sovereignty. Did you like the titles and stylings I gave you? How the King or the Queen have, lots of different titles, 70 or so? The muncher of the Exchequer's cat.
Her Majesty by the grace, His Majesty by the grace of God.
Oh, fuck, I'm not coping with King's Week.
King's Weekend.
King. All the magic's been taken out of the monarchy.
So I was watching an entire thing this morning about every single James Bond film, the progression of James Bond films.
Do you like James Bond films or not?
I am ambivalent about it.
Same.
Erin, my wife, loves James Bond films. She's quite an aficionado of them.
Why? Is it a camp aesthetic thing?
No, I think she just likes tough men who slap them around a little bit.
I thought she'd maybe like the Bond girls because she's a bit like a tricky Bond girl.
Yeah, she's a little bit pussy galore.
I don't think I've seen a James Bond film since that Australian bloke. What was his name? George Lazenby.
Oh, my God.
What was that one?
That's a while ago, isn't it?
It's the one where he gets married and then she dies, and then they're like, oh my God, they're gonna fuck this up. But I watched this video about all the Bond films this morning, and it was all for Queen and Country. Right? Why am I doing all these horrible things? It's for Queen and Country. It seemed really weird now if the next James Bond said for King and Country. That would just
King
be,
and Country.
Which is
he's got the grub, hasn't he?
He's what?
Got the cancer.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. He's not going to last as long as his mother, so the sooner he goes, the better.
Oh, but then there's that William thing. I mean,
he's going to not live long either. So, what do you call it? The grub?
Yeah, the grub. That's a New South Wales thing. I know you hate New South Wales.
I don't. No, it's rust.
But we were raised there. Sorry. Oh. So the grub,
rust,
or the Spanish dancer,
rust,
or as a gentleman with a certificate of Aboriginality, because that's a real thing, as you probably know. You get like a license to be Aboriginal.
Do you really?
Yeah, you do. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's one of the dodgier things around. I keep offering my white friends, like John O'Hawks I mentioned before, who's got a few health problems. I said to him, look, I can give you a certificate of Aboriginality, mate, and you can be going to close the gap like me.
Because it's so important, because Aboriginal people get so many privileges and so much stuff for free. It's awesome to be Aboriginal. Why wouldn't you want the license?
But there's an army of people who do that. I mean, we call them the Ancestry.comers. because
So-
that's where they get their Aboriginality from.
Yeah. It's genetic. Oh my God. Do you remember that Dick Elizabeth, what's her name, from the 2016 primaries? You know the one I mean.
Yeah. In the United States.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, well, anyway, she found out that she had like
Right.
Hopi heritage or something from Ancestry.com, and it's, you know who I mean. Oh, fuck it, I
Yeah,
don't
I know
care.
you, man. I just can't remember her name.
Yeah, well, she's eminently forgettable. She was just another bland liberal motherfucker.
But in Australia, academia is full of the Ancestry.comers.
like
It's so weird. It's so weird, especially in a time where gender is considered to be so fluid and something that can be remade, and that, you know, the very question that biological sex has anything to do with gender seems to preoccupy a lot of people. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's right, because feminism and gender studies bores the fucking shit out of me and goes nowhere.
Bit like Indigenous studies does to me.
Yeah, really?
And I teach Indigenous studies.
But, I mean, she actually was dumb enough to go, like, oh, see, I have a little bit of a exotic in me. I've got a little exotic lick. That's just fucking weird.
Anyway, what's the next subject?
so. What's the latest thing you've seen on TV that you like?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Gary's got an upcoming, shall we call it, cardiac event management thing to attend to.
That sounds like a pretty boring subject.
Because
Actually, no. It works with Fit and Trim. Tell us what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. One of the important bits of news for people listening to this podcast, since the last podcast, both John Hawkes and I have stopped smoking. We jointly stopped smoking together because when he had to stop smoking, coincided with my heart episode, so we both stopped smoking together and did it cold turkey.
Ross,
in
curious news just to hand, and I know you love a well-referenced literature review, smoking and heart disease linked.
That's what I hear. So,
Pretty shocking stuff.
I mean, I had no idea.
Not linked to the amount that gum disease and heart disease are linked, but okay.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just as a matter of information, the thing that surprised me, a close friend of mine, I think I mentioned him earlier, but he was diagnosed with cancer of the bladder, and I said to him,
That's one of the good ones, isn't it?
I said to him,
Isn't that one of the good ones?
"Let me finish." I
Hang on,
said
I'm
to him,
going to the
I
good
said to him, "Did
it's
they
obviously
tell
not a
you?
bad
Did they tell you why? What causes that?" And he looked at me and said, "Smoking." That's when he stopped smoking. That's when I stopped smoking.
Yeah, you know, breast
and
cancer too.
at the same day, I had the heart episode, so it all worked perfectly.
And also any alcohol. Also,
Ketamine.
ketamine?
That's why Elon Musk keeps pissing
Yeah,
his
gets
pants.
fishing himself. Yeah.
I was going to try the ketamine infusion therapy.
Or just don't do 20 pills a day.
Oh, no. They go to the...
Is that how many he's having?
Yeah, apparently.
No, if you've got treatment-resistant depression, you can get ketamine and psilocybin now. There you go. Gary, we have a segment called, we haven't really decided yet, but it's about apocryphal things. It's things we hope are true. Take it away. Bitsy.
They know it's business. Goose.
Hey, you got one today?
Yeah,
Ross?
oh my God, I do. I've got one which I think I should have had from the very, very first time we talked about this, which is that we only use 10% of our brains,
Oh, fuck.
right?
You just know that's something some dumb neuroscientist said.
Well, it's always been something that people have said to me ever since I was a kid. We only use 10% of our brains or 10% of the capacity of our brains. And it's obviously not true because we don't have any part of our body that only is having a 90% bludge.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice. It'd be nice if I could unlock more brain.
Yeah, I don't think that happens.
I don't know if I talk to Gary obviously has more of his brain working than I do, so maybe there's a way to unlock it.
I don't know. I used to think when I was young that the way to unlock parts of it was through drugs.
Well, there is, that can happen.
Well, I think once I started smoking dope and I had a couple of mushroom episodes and had some acid, I thought it expanded my mind considerably. But that was a long time ago.
Well, you are an odd bird. I mean, 1 minute you're doing a 4-episode featured stint in 1980s top-rating primetime soap, Country Practice.
Well, there was that too.
He played.
Hang on a second. Did you meet the Wombat?
And Flying Doctors, and
He had scenes with
I can't
Molly.
remember what other serials I was in. But that was fun.
Did you ever meet Georgie Parker?
You have a thing for Georgie.
She looks like a fucking horse. Of course I do.
Oh,
Who's that?
yes.
Georgie Parker.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary. I have a thing for women who very
Equine
specific,
women.
very very specifically for white women who look like horses.
Like,
Look like
Horses.
would this be like Alanis Morissette?
Yeah, on the way there.
Yeah, Bitsy's exactly the same.
I can't help it. Like I have gone against type, as you know.
Yeah.
My wife does not look like a horse. She just
No.
She looks like a very, very sexy Scandinavian potato.
My now dead ex-wife, who actually got along quite well with this one, she looked like a horse.
Yeah, she looks
Yeah,
like a horse.
I like horsey white women too.
what
They're hot. I think like
So you don't know what
like Sarah
what I
Jessica
mean?
Parker at
Sarah Jessica Parker looks like a horse.
like a horse looking woman.
like kind
were
of
you
kind
into
of,
horses before you developed this interest in
No,
women who look like horses?
no, it's only women that.
Actually, that's an exceptionally good question because I did grow up a little bit rural, so maybe. There's
a thing, right? There's
No, but
a thing.
I don't have a thing for like Labradors, and I was around a lot of Labradors.
No, it's women that have the thing for horses. Freud kind of explains it or gives us a key. There's always girls, doesn't matter how shit your school is, there's always a girl who just has to have a fucking pony.
And can draw ponies all the time on her exercise pad.
Yeah, like the pony is clearly a veneer for frequent masturbation. It is. And
Obviously,
some-
that's the
No, but
that's
it
the
is.
entire point of the pommel on the saddle.
Yeah,
You know
and
this.
the horse is a very phallic-looking animal. Oh, no, come on. You wouldn't say, a horse is not a girl animal, it's a boy animal. So girls get this extraordinary attraction to horses. It seems to be far deeper than anything cultural, anything that might unite them with the royals and, the sports of kings. And
Didn't you pinpoint it a moment ago? It's masturbatory.
Yeah, and horses are sexy, right? Like they're muscular. They suggest the masculine form, right? And there's a certain kind of girl, and they're always called Philippa. And they quite often go on to look like horses themselves. I am not entirely conversant with Sigmund Freud, but I have read, there's this great thing that Freud says, right? Like, so he basically invents the very useful concept of the unconscious mind, right? That's Freud, right? Like, we didn't have one before. And he attempts to explain to us how, the rational self is just a very, very tiny part of what's going on inside us. And there are several very beautiful analogies that he uses to describe the relationship between the conscious self and the rest of us, which is most of us, the 90% of brain we don't use, if you will. And one of the descriptions is we are like a miniature jockey hanging on for dear life on the back of a powerful stallion or thoroughbred or something like that. And so, horses are phallic. And I think you guys pick up on that. There's a whole... And people fuck horses, I've heard. There was a guy called Kevin at my school. He did what... No, he did it in year 9 and he wasn't even ashamed. No, he was like, I fucked a horse. And then there was another bloke called Nathan who showed everybody the masturbation devices that he'd made. Like, he was like, look, made this one out of foam and coat. Did this not happen at your schools?
No, and I went to a private school where that sort of thing would have been encouraged. No,
Yeah.
that never happened.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was just like a baby Kinsey and I asked people these questions. Didn't you have obscene friends when you were a teen, Gary?
Yeah, but nobody I knew at school had a horse. I don't think. I mean, my main thing about horses that's always sort of upset me is the fact that horses can only be ridden after they've been broken by a fucking human, which I find a really offensive sort of notion.
Yeah, but you've turned on cats, and cats is obviously your animal because you're a cat. He hates cats now because a cat left him and broke his heart. Tell the story.
That was 70 years ago for crying out loud. And I still don't like cats but I mean cats are independent sort of creatures. They do their own thing, which, that's fine. I've become accustomed to that in the last 70 years. I'm more of a dog person these days.
Yeah, but you are a cat. You're a great yowling cat.
This is not true at all.
Who knows how, within the repertoire of contention, to purr to an audience, to stick his tail up just so and lift the spirits
I'm not a calendar cat.
Radical cat fanciers. He is a cat. All the best people are. You're a cat. I'm a fucking Maltese.
I'm a cat?
Fuck yeah.
What did you say you are?
I'm a fucking Sydney Silky. I'm like some really annoying terrier, obviously.
Oh, no, dude, I'm like a sheep or a goat. I'm not either companion animal.
No, you're not. You're a feral cat then. Okay, so things, apocryphal stories, there are many apocryphal stories, apocryphal quotes, wonderful things, for example, that Mao may or may not have said, like, all under heaven is chaos, the situation is excellent. There's all these great sort of like apocryphal stories that may or may not have happened, and you want them to be true. This is the one that I want to be true, and I refuse to find out whether it is. Do you get me?
Go on.
Okay, so... Dorothy Parker, a great wit, didn't leave much of a literary record. Now, there is a famous book review that I cannot find a source for, and I've asked the chatty G's, and I'm paying pro subscription rates this month because I'm addicted. Oh, fuck, it's amazing. I don't have to talk to humans, and it keeps flattering me. And I keep saying, no, I'm not that great. It's fantastic. Anyway, so... Dorothy Parker, Dorothy Parker and the Vicious Circle, Dottie P, who loved a cat. She died reeking of gin and cat piss, and that's exactly how I want to go. So Dorothy Parker is said to have once reviewed a very odious novel that was shat out of the back end of a monstrously bad writer. It was a second novel, I think. This is not a book to be tossed aside lightly. Rather, it should be thrown across the room with great force. Now, I hope that's true, but it was allegedly a review of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, good on you, Dottie Parker, who, when she died, actually left her estate and all her copyright to the NAACP. I know, not a radical organisation, but that was the only mob she could give her money to. I like Dottie P. I want to die drunk.
That can be arranged.
Oh, Gary, another thing. Oh, so do you have any apocryphal things that you don't care if are true or not? Like, are you into inventing history? A lot of historians are.
Well, I mean, that's the nature of being a historian. I mean, all a historian is a glorified storyteller. And if you're a professor of history, you can say anything you like, and it's up to students to accept it or reject it,
And if you're Keith Winchuttle and you did one unit of it in first year, you can completely ignore the existence of the entire National Archive, let some pig shit fly out your mouth, probably even sue me for saying this on a podcast that basically the three of us will hear. God, that fucker's litigious.
Yeah, don't sue me.
No, don't sue Ross. He doesn't agree. No, fucking bring it on. I got nothing.
Oh, Winchuttle, that's the other good news. He's dead.
Oh,
hey!
I see.
Can't defame the dead.
Okay.
Hooray.
Yeah, full intention to ridicule like that was classic defamation.
I don't want to be sad about that.
He
died a few weeks ago.
With defamation, it doesn't matter if it's true or not under Australian law. But is
that's only in the Victoria.
Is that old prick seriously dead?
Yeah, he died a few weeks ago. There was a big celebration at Jimmy Watson's that night.
You are Black History, Gary Foley, as the T-shirt says.
And speaking of that, let me chuck in one thing. I can't remember if I said this earlier, but I want to get this across. I was told yesterday that one of my great heroes of the Aboriginal movement, the Aboriginal person who had the biggest ASIO file of any Aboriginal person.
Bigger than yours?
Absolutely, much bigger. Ray Peckham. He was an activist from the 1940s. He died at 96 the other day in Dubbo. When I was 17, he was one of my great inspirations. And the reason he had the biggest ASIO file of any Aboriginal person in Australia, he's the only, well, I might not be correct in this, but he's virtually the only Aboriginal person who became a member of the party back in the 40s and stayed.
The Communist Party?
Yes, till the day he died, a staunch fucking committed communist.
Nothing wrong with that, mate.
That's right, and that's one of the things that made him such a great man.
There are some days that you're a complete revolutionary
If you go and look at my Facebook page, I've got a picture of me and him taken 5 years ago when the last time I seen him.
You don't.
But he was a legend, and Paddy Gibson from Sydney and has just written a book. I went and done a swag of interviews with him and has written his story up, and I wrote forward to it, and we were in the process of trying to find a publisher before he died, but he beat us to it. But he was a legend and a truly great person.
Gary, if he didn't use more than 10% of his brain, unlike the rest of us, would just be a hoarder. As it is, he has become an archivist. You invented a particular day, which I think was NAIDOC Day. You renamed NAIDOC Day.
Oh, Buy a Bunga Beer Week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was by...
I put out a poster about Buy a Bunga Beer Week. It's on my website somewhere. I put it out in 1971 or something. People still pull it up every National Aborigines Week these days.
Yeah.
And, that was fun. But I mean, that's... Sorry. I mean, it's part of something that Webster taught me. If you use provocation in a really creative way, you can make people think, and that was part of it, you know, because fucking National Aborigines Week is such a token fucking bullshit thing. It needed to be exposed as such, and by calling it Buy a Bunga Beer Week, it sort of made people fucking think about, well, what is the nature of this fake fucking celebration?
The biggest compliment I've ever received in my life, well, the biggest compliment would have been, I'm sad to say that I'm now, that 30 years have elapsed. I don't have a fucking ASIO file. I never wanted a Walkley.
How do you know?
Well, because they released them after 30 years.
After 30 years, you can go and check at the National Archives. All Australian documents, including the ASIO files, revert to the National Archives after 30 years. And that's how I started. How I started looking at my ASIO file.
Okay.
And there's been a film made on my ASIO file, and me and my ASIO file.
It's not a bad film.
It's called Persons of Interest, made by Hayden Keenan, one of my best mates in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I've been in all of Hayden's films except his first one. And the reason I'm not in his first film is because the day he started shooting it was the day the Aboriginal Embassy broke, and I decided that rather than being a film star, I'd go to the embassy.
Yeah.
But I'm in all the rest of his films. But another announcement I can make is Tony Birch's next book. It's going to be a non-fiction book. It's going to be a biography of me. And I've told him...
you told me that. I'm supposed to be doing that. We're not talking about that.
I haven't said that on air, have I?
Yeah.
I've told him that he's not allowed to... He can do it, but he's not allowed to publish it until I'm dead.
I have given you at least 15 steak dinners, and you've been stringing me along.
Not just you. There's at least 200 people.
Ross, please.
Hang on,
I'm sorry.
The idea of your biography being written, but only coming out posthumously, why?
I'm not into fucking self-glorification. I'm
I wouldn't write
I'm not
that
into
one.
the accolades. I'm not into the fucking all of that shit. You can say whatever you like about you think I might be, but I'm fucking not. And I really detest it.
I'll do the unauthorised.
Yeah, that's permissible. But
So,
there's nothing I can do about you writing the unauthorised one, so you're welcome to go ahead, mate. No worries.
All right.
I think Helen should write my biography.
I should do that.
That'd be a fucking nightmare, Jesus Christ.
Oh, God, it would be awesome. I mean, the bits I know about you are quite fascinating.
There'll be a solid chapter on horsey women. Sure.
I mean, you keep unfolding.
I'm not going to get into that. Let's shit show in Egypt.
All right.
Shit.
Shit show in Egypt. It's our cultural review time. I will offer nothing but I do not understand Ed Sheeran. I do not understand why people exchange money for Ed Sheeran. Why does anybody want to look at Ed Sheeran? He is the death rattle of US empire and hegemonic boredom. Everybody is so well behaved, it fucking shits me. Okay, so that's my critique. What are you watching on television? Is there any music, television, film, anything like that you're like, and don't make it worthy, something that you're actually into?
I've been doing something completely outside the box. I've been doing a lot of interesting exploration of Irish music.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, you are Irish.
I want to know what the connection between Steve Earle and Ireland is, because he wrote that song, Galway Girl, that the Irish have gone apeshit over, and some of the best versions of it have been by Irishmen, and yet he's a fucking redneck southerner from America. And it's really interesting. And the other thing that I've been into, I've been intrigued by Woody Guthrie's. I've always loved Woody Guthrie's song, Plane Crash at Los Gatos, the deportee. And I've noticed in recent years, people who've been inspired by Guthrie's song have actually gone out and researched, and they've actually put names to those people who were killed in that plane crash at Los Gatos. And it's still a powerful, relevant song because they're still fucking doing it today in America. You know, Trump and them are demonising and vilifying immigrants, especially Mexicans. And I mean, that's what the song was. Guthrie wrote this song 60 fucking years ago. What Guthrie's song has done 60 years later has made people go out and find the fucking names of those people. The song goes, they go by no name except deportee. They've now got names on their graves, whereas for 60 years they just had a fucking plaque that just said 24 of whatever people dead, you know, under this gravestone.
Here on Vanity Project, that was a marvellous chaos. I'm sorry, Ross, you've seen this side of me.
I love this side of you.
My sycophantic need for approval with this guy. I'm going to write his fucking biography just to spite him.
You know that I love you, Helen. I'm letting the world know I love Helen, everybody.
It won't win you
Don't get us wrong here.
He opened for the fucking Clash.
Who did?
Him.
Joe Strummer was a
In
mate of mine.
1982, he opened for the Clash.
Seven concerts around Australia.
Fucking hell.
Joe Strummer was a good human being.
Yeah.
You know, there's
despite what
no
Johnny
two ways
Lydon
about
has
it.
to say. I mean, he was a posh boy, but so is Ross, so that's all okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye, folks. It's been a buzz.